In the direct, what you will get? You will get direct material, direct labor, direct expense. All put together we call it as what? Your prime cost. What is carriage inward? Whatever raw material you will buy, it has to be transported from your purchase department to factory. Internal transportation, we call it as carriage inward. Hello everyone, this is your Adarsh sir, lecturing Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. So we are in the session 3 of your topic called cost accounting. Now, under cost accounting, now we are moving towards the second part. What is that second part? The second part is called as your cost sheet. Now, we understood what is cost accounting, their advantages, limitations, the difference between financial as well as your cost accounting. Now, in the second session, we discussed about the types of cost accounting. Under types, we discussed about the elements like your on the basis of behavior, on the basis of functions, on the basis of controllability, on the basis of element, we classified costing. Now we are doing problems on cost accounting. How do we do cost accounting problems? Now, in the cost accounting, the major part we call it as your cost sheet. Your cost accounting begins with the help of cost sheet. The reason we prepare cost accounting is to finalize with the help of cost sheet. As I told you in the first session, the manufacturing cost for this I calculated 80. How come you got 80 rupees for this manufacturing cost? This 80 rupees is calculated with the help of cost sheet. In cost sheet, you will understand how the cost will be determined. What is direct, what is indirect. Individually, how much you will spend for the manufacturing. Once manufacturing is done, what is the next process? You have to advertise, you have to publicity that particular product. All the cost included in the cost sheet, except your tax as well as your financial expenses. Rest of the things are included. Which are your financial expenses? Like you have taken loan of 5 lakh from the bank. Whatever interest you are paying, those are called as financial expenses. Or income tax payment, financial expenses. Interest on debentures, financial expenses. Dividend paid to the shareholders, all comes under financial expenses. Excluding those financial costs, we include all cost related expenses. So whatever cost we calculate here, it is not final. Why? Because the financial expenses you incurred is not added to cost accounting. Now, so in today's session, we will understand what is cost sheet as well as how do we calculate what is the format of cost sheet. Now, in today's session, first we will understand what is the meaning of cost sheet. Now, the meaning of cost sheet is very simple. Cost sheet is a statement that shows the various components of total cost of a product and shows the previous data for comparison. So in the financial accounting, what you can do, you can prepare profit and loss balance sheet for the current year. Last year also you have prepared profit and loss as well as balance sheet. Now, what you can do comparison. This year my salary, I have paid 5 lakh to the workers. Last year, if you take the P&L of last year, you will get to know you paid salary of 3,75,000. Why there is a changes of 3,75,000 to 5 lakh? There is a 1,25,000 difference. Why these difference? Everything you will understand if you do comparison. How can you do comparison? Why? Because you have done P&L for the last year, you have done P&L for the current year. Similarly, whatever cost sheet you will prepare, you are preparing for current year. You had prepared for the last year also. Once you're done with your preparation for the current year, you can do comparison with your previous year. This is called comparison. Comparison can be done if you do your cost sheet properly. So this is all about your cost sheet. Next, Proforma of your cost sheet. So Proforma, it is nothing but the method of doing your cost sheet. As I told you, there are 4 things are there. Before I'll go to cost sheet, I wanted to explain that. Now, in the cost sheet, we have stages like your direct. In this, you will get direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. This chart is very important to understand the cost sheet. Please write down once I done with that. Now, first stage is what? Direct. Under direct, what you will get? You will get material, labor, expenses. All put together, we call it as prime cost. This is your stage 1. What is your stage 2? Now, the stage 2 we call it as indirect. Indirect. So, under indirect, again we get 3 things. Which are those? 1, 2, 3. First one, factory overhead. Overhead means, remember, these are expenses. Indirect expenses, we call it as overhead. Now, office and administration overhead. And the last one, selling and distribution overhead. These are called as overhead. Remember, this is your cost sheet. Whatever we are going to discuss for the next 10 minutes is all about your direct as well as indirect. In the direct, what you will get? You will get direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. All put together, we call it as what? Your prime cost. Prime is major. Now, once you're done with your prime cost, we add back these things. Which are those? Like your factory overhead, administration overhead, as well as selling and distribution overhead. Overhead means what? Indirect expenses. Now, remember, in this we take raw materials. In your first stage, we talk about your raw material. Raw material means your opening stock, closing stock. Both we consider in the first stage, that is called in prime cost. We will consider raw material like opening stock of raw material, add purchases minus closing stock of raw material. Whatever I am explaining now, this is very important. Whatever cost sheet I am going to explain, this is all on the basis of these things. Now, in the second stage, we have factory overhead. Under factory, we will not talk about raw material. We talk about work in progress, because raw material you bought, you have put those things into for production. It is under process. This we call it as work in progress. Still, it is not completed. Like while traveling somewhere in the road, you will find that there may be some digging work happen or some road construction will be happening. Then what? The board will be there. Work in progress. Work in progress means still they are working on that. It is not yet completed. Now, so all the opening and closing will be considered in which part? Factory overhead. Never be in confusion. In your question paper, they will give you opening raw material, opening work in progress. If it is opening raw material, take it under prime cost. If it is opening work in progress, take it under factory. Remember, don't interchange, it will be wrong then. Next part is office and administration. In this, we will take finished goods or finished stock. We consider finished. First one is what? Opening raw material, closing raw material will come under prime. Opening work in progress, closing work in progress will come under factory. Opening finished goods, closing finished goods will come under office. In selling and distribution, we will not get anything. Hope you understood. Yes, in your question paper, they will give you opening raw material, opening work in progress, opening finished goods. In your question paper, they will give you closing raw material, closing work in progress, as well as closing finished goods. How you're supposed to take? You're supposed to take like all the opening should be add, all the closing should be minus. Opening of raw material comes under first part. Opening of work in progress comes under factory. Opening or closing of your finished goods comes under office. This is all about your cost sheet. Almost 40% of your cost sheet you learned in this chart. If you want, you can take a screenshot. I'll go out of the screen. Now, the first part of your cost sheet, as I told you, what is your first part? As per our discussion, the first part is your prime cost. The first part is called as prime cost. Now, as per this, the serial number, particular amount, total cost, and cost per unit. Cost per unit, every time we will not calculate as per the requirement of the question. In the question, it demands that we should calculate cost per unit, then you are supposed to do. If they have not asked about cost per unit, then we are not supposed to go for that. So only up to total cost we are supposed to do. Now, once we done with this, your direct material, your direct wages, direct expenses, all the direct things we are supposed to take. Along with that, opening stock, purchases minus closing stock. What is opening stock? Opening stock of raw material, purchase of raw material, closing stock of raw material. Very simple. Direct material plus opening stock of raw material minus closing stock of raw material. In between, we have a concept of carriage inward. What is carriage inward? Whatever raw material you will buy, it has to be transported from your purchase department to factory. Internal transportation, we call it as carriage inward. For example, I can take an example of your JK tires. The factory is about 10 kilometer. The whole premises is all about 10. Example I am giving, it is not 10, it comes lesser than 10. Now, it all comes around 10 kilometer premises. Now, the purchasing department is here. Production department is almost 5 kilometer. In the same compound, this is your left corner, this is on your right corner. Now, you need to transport from here to here. Can you go on walk? No. You have to take some vehicle, or else you have to take some wheel, so that by that, on that you can carry the goods. So, this is called as carriage inward. Any transportation of raw material within the premises, we call it as carriage inward. This comes under direct expenses. Now, minus closing stock, add wages, add expenses. Finally, you got what? You got prime cost. This is your first major head. 1, 2, 3 will end in first part only. This is called your first, what we discussed, direct. We completed. Clear? So what comes under prime cost? Very simple. Your opening stock, add purchases minus closing. Along with that, carriage inward. Then direct wages and direct labor. If you add everything, you will get your prime cost. This much only you will get in your prime cost. Now, you're done with your prime cost. What is the next step? I'll show you. So your next step, we call it as indirect expenses. Which are those indirect expenses? Now, your indirect expenses, the first thing we can call it as factory expenses. Now, you need not to remember everything. Just assume that you're running a factory. Now, in the factory, whatever expenses you make, those things you need not to remember. In the question specifically, they will mention that factory lighting, factory electricity, water charges of factory, salary of factory labor, or any general expenses of factory, stationery of factory. Almost 90% of expenses the word comes with prefix of factory, so that easily to identify that which are factory. Now see, your indirect material, indirect wages, factory rent, factory lighting, power and fuel, repair, drawing office expenses. What is drawing office expenses? The person who makes the plan of production, how the production process will happen. He will make a draw, he will make a sketch, that he will give you idea about the production process. Now, research and experiment, depreciation of factory plant, work stationery. Works means, remember, the another name for factory we call it as work. Factory insurance, factory manager, minus scrap. What is this? The only income you will get, that is scrap. Many companies are there, they are surviving with the help of selling their scrap. Scrap means what? At the time of manufacture, like they have given some tool, like I can give you example. So this is X, your Y. Now, so you are working on contract basis. They have given a tool like a small metal, small pieces. They have given almost 1000 pieces like this. They have given. What you are supposed to do? You have a machine at your office. He is the owner for you. You are the working for them. Now, he has given this metal, small metal. What is your work? You have to make this metal into like this, like screw. You have to make this metal like this. The screw you have seen, I think. So normally the screw is like this. So you are supposed to make that screw. Now, at the time of making that shape, what happened? The edge will be removed. So those edge we call it as scrap. Or while manufacturing, it is cutted, or here some damage. Those are called as scrap. Those scrap, what you can do? You can sell it to outsider as a scrap. Whatever the metal scrap you sell, that is an income for you. So from your all the expenditure, you are supposed to minus those scrap expenditure. Now, so later, opening stock of work in progress minus closing stock of work in progress, you will get work cost. Your prime cost is over. Now the second part is what? Work cost. What is this? Work in progress. I'll go back to my example. See, for factory, what will come? Work in progress will come. Hope you now you are understanding why that format I have given. Your factory expenses are over. What is the next one? Office and administration. See, office expenses. If you are running a office, you are a manager of office, what are the expenses you will incur? Like you will pay salary, rent, lighting, printing, telephone, cleaning, insurance, legal, depreciation. All we call it as cost of production. For that, finished goods will come, like opening stock of finished goods less closing stock of finished goods. What is your final answer? The final answer we call it as cost of goods. Cost of goods sold. So this is all about your second part of indirect. What is the first part? Factory. What is the second part? Office. So up to this, hope you understood. Now we'll go for the next part. The last part we call it as selling and distribution. So once you're done with your production, once you're done with your payroll, all the office work is done. What is the next process? Selling. So what are the normal expenses happens in selling? You have to pay commission to your workers, like your salesman commission has to be paid. Then what is the next process? You're supposed to pay rent of your godown. You have to pay traveling expenses of taking goods from one place to another place. Advertising, designing, flex, board, everything you have to make. Those are packing. All comes under your selling and distribution. And your carriage inward we took in direct, but carriage outward comes here. Means whatever transportation happens within the premises, we call it as carriage inward. Whatever transportation happens outside the premises, we call it as carriage outward. Now, salesman's salary, office rent, advertising, gift and sample, promotion, packing charges, demonstration, showroom rent, commission, traveling, warehouse, repair, depreciation. You need not to remember everything. In the question, they will not give you all. I need 2 or 3 things they will give you. As you know, in the format, it is my responsibility to give everything. So I have given. No need to remember. If you have the knowledge of what are the expenses happens in selling, those are sufficient. Now, and as I told you, most of the things they will give you directly selling and distribution expense. Now, finally, you will get cost of sales, add profit. Finally, you will get your sales. Hope you understood. This is all about your cost sheet. I'll go back to all the slides and you have to take a screenshot. So this is your cost sheet meaning. Your first part of your cost sheet, second part of your cost sheet, the third part of your cost sheet, the final part including profit we have shown. So this is all about your today's session. Hope you understood. And so your homework is what? Your homework is very simple. Before you come for the next session, you must be familiar with this cost sheet. Means how can you be familiar? Very simple. Learn. Almost you spend 1 hour for this. Later, without seeing this, you should write the complete cost sheet. If you are able to write the complete cost sheet without seeing this, then it is understood that you have learned. So this is all about the small homework I am giving you. For you have almost 24 hours, 1 more day to go. Before that, please, my suggestion, go through, work out, then you come back for the next session. Thank you.